Hey guys, this is Hayes with CheatSheetPros, and today we are going to go ahead and do the cheat sheet tutorial for the basketball sheet for the 2023/2024 season. So let me go ahead and get this pulled up. So this is the sheet from today. I'm going to go over sports betting, player props, daily fantasy information, kind of do a walkthrough for anyone that's new or playing with the sheet right now. So let's go ahead and get started. One thing you'll notice when you open up the sheet down here, we have all kinds of tabs depending on what you're doing and what you're playing. I will update this key tab. It kind of tells you a little bit about what the different things are. The main one I wanted to bring back in was, well, I guess I can't highlight it, this right here, so you can see what these names mean, such as like GPP Dart, Mini Diamond, Diamond, Hot Player, Limited Upside, Popcorn, and it has the definition over here. Some of the basic stuff we have over here, we have the DVP zone. So this is where you're going to get most of your defense versus position data. Here you can see everything in here, and I pulled the last 15 days, so the last 2 weeks. The reason is the longer the season goes on, the more of just an average it comes back to the mean. So I want to see the last 2 weeks. That way, like let's say LeBron James and Anthony Davis get hurt, and then 2 weeks later, if you look at the season DVP, it's going to be an average. But if you look at the last 2 weeks, it's really going to reflect those two being out of the lineup. So I want to get a glimpse that's kind of always moving throughout the season. So here we have our total fantasy points allowed by the team, and we are focusing on this team here is what they are allowing. So this would be the team you would target in column C. And then I broke it down to each specific position. So you can see good spots, bad spots. And then if you don't like looking at the numbers, if that's hard on your eyes, I just did rankings 1 to 30. 30 is a good spot to target. 1 is a tough spot, not allowing many points. So you could see like right here, Toronto gives up a bunch of points to the center, not so much anywhere else. And then if you want to lump it up, one thing we did last year is we just put like point guard, shooting guard together, small forward, power forward together, and center, and we broke it down into 3 different ones. So you can kind of see how they break guards, forwards, centers. That helped out a little bit. And then if you want to get specific, if you want to get real deep and you're looking at player props, we have points allowed, rebounds allowed, assists allowed, 3-point made shots allowed, steals, etc., blocks all the way down. So your basic DVP tab over the last 2 weeks, I think everybody understands what that is, but you can use that for daily fantasy, a little bit of sports betting, and really player props is another place that comes into. When we are looking at player props, the other tab I want to look at is this one called props down here at the bottom. And so what we did with this tab is you can click in here and you can go to any game you want, and you can see all the players side by side lined up and the recent games, and then you can see if they played, if they didn't play. For example, so Jaden McDaniels, he didn't play these first 2 games. So maybe you look and see, okay, who benefited? So over here, Naz Reid put up 25 points when he was out, and then when he came back, he dropped to 13 and then dropped down to 16. So there's little correlations that you can find and see what people do when they are out of the game. And then also you can click up here in this box and you can look at points, rebounds, assist, fantasy score, 3-point shots made, blocks, steals. And I added these points, rebounds, points, assist, rebounds, assist props. I like doing some of those. Like here, rebounds, assist, you can see Rudy Gobert, 13, 14, 15, 14. So if you're looking at a player prop that's, say, 10.5, you could look at it and try to find a good number. I know a lot of people play alt lines, so this will kind of tell you what they've been doing over recent games without the need to pull up each player's game logs and calculate multiple columns. We tried to make it a little bit easier for you. And yeah, you can just flip through these and kind of take a look at them. PRA is a big one. I don't have the price picks lines pulled in yet. I'm looking for some new ways to capture those, but I do have it set up. So when price picks has a line, they're going to show up here. We're going to stick with like points, rebounds, assists, and 3-point shots made. And you can see I left some blank columns over here. I can extend this out if I need to. And then we got our daily raw projections. I know in the past we had projections from 3 different sites. Projections are not real accurate, so I just did kind of a basic average. But you can see these are the projected minutes the player is going to play, points, rebounds, assists, 3-point shots made, and I rounded it up to the nearest half or nearest quarter, depending on what stat we're looking at. And then you can see on these projections over these players, these are your totals. So you can see 240 minutes is what, so they're fully projected out, but you can see here to 238 minutes. So out of their projections, there's 2 extra minutes that are not captured here. So someone may get a small bump in minutes. And you can flip through, sorry, my dog's outside barking. You can flip through, take a look at, you know, all these different games. I mean, there's so many things you can look at in here. If you're doing player props, I love this tab. So this tab is our game logs. And you can see these two haven't been filled in yet because they haven't played that many games. But what I love about this is you can come right here and you can see everything you need to see. And I'll have the price picks lines populated in here. But you can see the projection, you can see their average over the last 4, so you can see the differences. So the green is good, they are averaging more than their projection. That is usually the sign of a good prop to come. And then you can see here we have points, rebounds, assist, points, rebounds, assist, 3-point shots made, blocks, steals, minutes played, which is key, free throws made, and then fantasy points. And then also I put the DK salary, FanDuel salaries in here. And then we have the label for the game. You can see I brought it in here so you can see like Miles is a hot player. So for example, let's say you're looking at a rebound prop for Miles Turner. You can quickly look here and say, okay, over the last 5 games, he's got 9, 5, 11, 12, 8. Well, this 5, you could look up here and say, okay, it was against Boston. Maybe they are tough against rebounders. You can also look and say, okay, well, in this game that he only had 5, he only played 22 minutes. In all the other games, 31, 32, 29 minutes. So I like to see if a player goes down or he misses a stat or goes under, that he played lower minutes. So their production necessarily doesn't dip. They just weren't on the floor. If you are looking at player props, diamond play, mini diamond, hot players, those are the guys you typically want to look at. You can flip through here. We're going to see a lot of limited upside early in the season. A lot of low minute, low ceiling. Oh, we got a cash safe. I haven't seen one of those yet. But this is really good because you can flip around, click up in here, and you can go through and look at all these players. So here you can see Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet is a hot player, so you can kind of see what he's been doing, minutes played, all that good stuff. So this is the tab I spend the most of my time on when I'm building same-game parlays. It's a lot of fun. And then the leaderboard tab I had running in the background. And let me show you this. So Ben, one of the guys in the chat, sent this over. I don't know if it hit. I didn't look it up, but he had put on there. Let me show it to you. It said first night of using the leaderboard. So he's the first person that reached out and asked to have the leaderboard put back in. And these sheets are made for you guys to help your research. So I added it in there. And you can see here, he's got a 7-leg parlay, $1, and it pays plus 67.65. And he won the first 5. And then there were 2 still pending, but he's like, I got all of these off just using the leaderboard. So what is the leaderboard? So when you come over here to this leaderboard tab, the fun thing with this, let me make sure you can see it. Okay, so your leaderboard tab, you can click here and we can look at all these stats. Points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, 3 points made. I just leave it on points for the default. I come up here, I sort average. I used to filter out this column, but you can do it if you want to. The NOG, that's just no game. So if you click up here and you go down here to the no game and filter them out, it'll bring up all the players that have a game today. So it's just looking back saying, hey, does this player have a game? If they're not on the slate, it defaults to no game, but you can still see their stats. And you can come up here and say, sort this by high. So who's averaging the most points? And this is a quick look at the last 5 games. So here we can see Kevin Durant, he's got the most. He's averaging 27.4. Some people wanted to see the projection and see the difference of the average versus the projection. So he's projected at 23.5. He's averaging 27.4. So that's a difference of 3.9. Typically, most places like Prize Picks and DraftKings, when they come up with these props, it's usually the raw projection. So usually, not every time, the prop is going to be close to the projection. So if you come over here, these are probably going to be good guys that you can go after points props on or look at. Now, what I do not like is someone like Cam Thomas. 36, 30, 33, boom, down to 13, boom, down to 17. That's got a wide variance on it. I like people like Durant, 28, 26, 26, 39. You know, he's consistently, you could say, hey, 26 to 30, that's kind of where he's going to be. So if you have a prop that's 25 plus, I'd feel pretty good about that. If you want to get a little crazy, I'd go 28 plus or 30 plus, but it gives you some range. Cam Thomas, he's just kind of a wild card. He started off red hot, and then in this game, he took, I think it was 18 or 20 field goal attempts. He just only made 4 of them. And then here, I didn't really look, but I did bet him over 23.5. It did not hit, obviously. And then over here, Levine, you know, consistent, 24, 22, 23, 51. So if you're looking at a prop and you're building these same game parlays, I would look at that and say, hey, 20 plus, that's a pretty good one. So over 19.5 or 20 plus would be a good one to throw in. Devin Booker, the same way. Basically 30 points every time he's on the floor. And then here with Markkanen, you get a little bit of up and down. But you can look at any stat and dig in through these. Like rebounds is another one. Like, well, look at Jokic. 10 plus every game with a high of 14. Or you could look over here and say, okay, Cam Thomas, it doesn't really do much. He had a game of 7 and 5, but 2 to 3 a game is kind of, but you get a feel for the player, so that really helps you when you're kind of digging around looking at these props. If you want to look at PRA, you can flip through. You can even filter this out by team. Say we only want to look at points, rebounds, assists for Brooklyn players because we're building a same game parlay. You could say, okay, well, so looking at this, I would say, okay, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, they're probably your top 2. And when one goes down, the other goes up. So here, Cam had 39. He was down to 25. But when Mikal went up to 33, Cam went down to 16. So what I would not do is take both of these players at the same time over 30 plus. That does not look to be a good bet. But you could take one of them and say, okay, that's pretty consistent. You could come over here to Ben Simmons and put him at 18 plus, 20 plus. He's been doing that pretty consistently, but that's kind of how I build my same game parlays. If you're doing sports betting, we have a scoreboard tab over here, and there's 2 things you're looking at. First is your Vegas lines over here. This is just what's on Vegas. I run this sheet in the morning. I run it again about 4 in the afternoon most days. Not every day, but most days. I've got 2 kids in sports and some family with some medical issues, so I'm running all over the place sometimes. And there may be a day or 2 a week where I miss an update. Not a big deal. I'm going to add some more information to here, but I wanted to get this up and just kind of get it running. But we have the record, the last 10, the streak for the player. We have what Vegas is projecting. And I broke it out in projected score with the total so you could get kind of an idea. And then this is our cheat sheet line. So this is our custom line. It's going to change drastically over the season because it's only pulling stats from this year. But this edge column is what you want to look at. So if you see an edge of minus 8.4, that means that we are projecting it different than the line. So right here, Philly is minus 4. We're projecting Philly should be minus 12. Now, again, it's early in the year. You really have to look at these games. But like yesterday, I did a quick screenshot and I posted, I think, Brooklyn, Portland, and Dallas. And they were all dogs. 2 of the 3 dogs won. Dallas didn't cover. I think they lost by 9 and they were +6, +7. But 2 of the 3 hit, and I spent about 3 minutes looking at the scoreboard tab and came up with those plays and bet those 3 and said, okay, before I went to bed, I went back, looked, and like, hey, I won 2 or 3. That's not bad. But this will give you the edge. And then down here, this little, I tried to make it a little bit different color. So like if we're plus, that means our model's going over. So Vegas has this at 220.5. We're projecting it at 227.4. So we got it over by about 7 points. So again, early in the year, but it's something you can kind of take a look at. And then over here, we have a power rank. So instead of having 3 different power rankings from 3 different places and spins on them, that was just confusing as hell. So I simplified it out. I have 1 set of power rankings, and I'm trying to run this consistently across all the sports. And with the same, you know, it's going to run from 60 to about 100 scale on the power rankings. We have them over here, and it's going to give you a line on what the power ranking has. Well, it was hard for me to look and say, okay, well, they're -4, they're -6, that's an edge of 2. So I went ahead and added in this edge column over here so you can quickly see, okay, -2, okay, so Philly. All right, -1, okay, Atlanta, Orlando, Indy, and you can kind of tell which way these are looking. So sometimes the cheat sheet line and the power ranking line are going to be different. Sometimes they're going to be on the same side. So for example, Utah, Minnesota, This is leaning 2.2 points towards Utah, and that about a half a point towards Utah. So both of them are on the same side. And again, I'm going to add some more stats over in these columns. Right now, there's some data being calculated in the white space to come up with all of these. But I'm going to spread that out, put some more stuff over here, like how they are, ATS, that's against the spread if you're new, over-unders, margin of movement, stuff like that. So we've done the key, we've done the leaderboard, we've done the game logs, we've looked at the props tab, we looked at the DVP. So I'm going to look at the main, and then I'm going to come back to the bet tab. So if you're playing daily fantasy sports, or if you're in a league with your friends or whatever, this is your go-to tab. So the main tab is where you're going to pick up custom projections, minute projections, and anything for daily fantasy information. Now, we have a couple different things that we do. So we do a GPP algo, so it's just kind of like a custom formula that runs, minutes, consistency, minutes played, how well a player's done, all this information, and it puts it in a number that's a scale from 0 to 100, and I sort it, and that's how I post the sheet. So usually these top players are where you want to start looking to pick out your core of players. Now, if you're going to win a big GPP, you're going to need some random darts in there that blow up, and NBA is notorious for having players, oh, he's out 5 minutes before the game, and you're like, what the hell do I do now? That's the hard part with NBA that you got to keep track of, because we cannot capture every up to the minute play. So we do our best doing an afternoon update to get most of those, but if you're a die-hard player, you really need to watch those lineups as they come out all the way up to game time and be ready to move. But over here, we've got their main position, so this is what we pull the DVP off of. And then DraftKings and FanDuel, however their positions listed on the site. Like you can see here, Brandon Miller, he's small forward, power forward on DK, but he's only small forward on FanDuel. So you can kind of tell. That way, if you're building a lineup, and let's say you have $8,000 left, you can filter out to $8,000. And if you're on DK, you can filter out here to only small forwards, and you can look at those players right next to each other to determine what you like. These stats here are obvious: team total, Vegas spread, Vegas total. Boom bust, this is something we added last year. I haven't looked at it much this year. Some people wanted it, some people loved it. But it's just a different way to go if you don't want to look at the GPP algo, or if, let's say, you have two players here, I would look at the higher boom play if you're playing a GPP. One thing that people really did like was the player labels. So once again, I brought those back this year. And you can see these are just custom calculations. Of course, diamond is the top. That would be the top play that meets all the criteria. Then we have mini diamond. So that meets all the criteria except for one or two lower parameters. And then you fall down into a plethora of things like hot player. Let me see. We got popcorn. We got a cash safe play. A lot of these will fill in once we get some more data, but one of the defaults is limited upside if they're not really hitting 6x, 7x value. Industry pick is one where a standard projection is projecting a value, but it's a little risky because they've kind of been up and down. So for this player, for example, we're looking at it, and I love this color coding. These are going to be the last 16 days in the NBA, and you see the color coded in here. So if it is, it's up here if you ever want to look at it. So if they're blue, that means it's less than 4.5x value their current salary. Typically on DraftKings, where I primarily play when I do play DFS, is you want 5x salary. So if a player is $10,000, you want 50 points. You want 5x the X value. So 4.5 to 5x won't kill you. So I got them kind of like that goldish color. 5x to 6x is good. So that's green. That means they're hitting value. They're over it. And red is really good. That's 6x and higher. And then we have a hit rate here for 5x. So out of these last 16 days, the percentage of times they hit value, which is 5x. And then I have a counter for 6x games and 7x games. And then these hot players, these are going to be how many 6x games they've had in the last 7 days. So you're going to look right here and you're going to say, okay, there's been 3 games here where he's been 6x. So these players are going to be really good, or really hot, you could say. If you are uploading your own projections, I have my custom projections here. And then we have our DraftKings, our FanDuel. And these custom ones are kind of what I come up with. I use a different formula. And then when we come over here, mine are based off this fantasy point per minute. So your basic projections are fantasy point per minute, and most sites take the season average times the projected number of minutes played. So no matter what site you go to, it's going to be some form of that. Some bump the minutes up and down and move them around. But that's the basic calculation, is your fantasy points per minute. Now, what I do is I look at the fantasy points per minute for the season to calculate how efficient they are. And then I also bring in a custom calculation for the last 5 games they've played. And you can see here the differences. Now, some of these players have not played 5 games yet, so you're not going to see a lot of differences. Like Rozier, 0.96, 0.97. You know, not a lot of change there. But once we get, 20 games into the season, 25, 30 games into the season, you're going to see their season average and their last 5 average. Some people get really good and better, and some are going to trend downward, and that will help you find your plays. If you are uploading your own projections, you can take mine and you can just copy and paste these 2 columns here, and I have all of the names and the projections. So you can just go right here, go copy, paste it into your optimizer, upload it. Typically, Cruncher's a real easy one to use. I've used almost all of them. It's basically just a math formula. You don't have to pay the fancy money to get the most expensive one. You can even build one in Excel, which I have a tutorial on YouTube on how to do, but I haven't done that for about 5 years. And then also, if you want to look at something different as far as projections, here is your last 5 fantasy point per minute times their projected minutes. So what this is doing, it's only taking their last 5 fantasy point per minute and their projected minutes, and then it's calculating out a separate number. So you could even highlight this, copy, paste it in there, and run a different set of projections for your optimizer. Now, there's not going to be a lot of change across here. As you can see, some of them haven't played 5 games, so 45.9, 45.4, that's not really going to change a whole lot, but once the season gets going and up and running, that will give you a great deal of information. You can even come in through here and filter out these players and say, hey, I want to see what diamond players there are. Okay, well, tonight there's Anthony Davis and D'Angelo Russell. So, okay, let me see what mini diamond players we have. All right, we got Maxey, Markkanen, Collins, and Suggs. And then you can kind of break it down like that if you're playing DFS. And then the last tab we have is the Bet tab. This is mainly for your sports betting enthusiast. And so when you come in here, you click inside the home team as you do with most of these, and this little caret will appear. You see it's not there. And I always get the question of new people is, how do I change the games? Well, click inside that box, boom. This caret appears. Now you can see all of the home teams. And let's pick Brooklyn. Now we see Brooklyn, Boston. We see the Vegas spread, last 10 record. We see our power rankings lines. Now we see our Cheat Sheet Pro model projection line and projected line. This gives you a small recommendation. Right now we have differences of +7 points it will highlight. Over here, these are all your normal stats. You can pretty much read those. Last 10 power ranks, ATS, streaks, home, road, over, under, ATS, last 10, etc., etc. Over here, I shrunk down the DVP stuff a little bit so you can see points per game allowed. And then the main thing with NBA are 3-point shots and points in the paint. So I brought in a ranking for the points that the team scores in the paint and the points that comes from 3 points. And then over here, I did what they are allowing in the paint versus 3. So you can see here, number 1 is good, and then number 30 is bad. That's not good. So that gives you a quick synopsis of what the team is doing. And I love looking at the game logs. No matter what sport I'm playing, when I find something, I'm always looking at the game logs, last 5, last 10. So last year we brought in season game logs, and we'll run this thing down for the whole season. We'll keep it going. I keep 20 games up right now, but you can see here these teams have played 5 games. Each day I run the sheet, they get more games. It comes down here, and then we've got stats for the last 10, so you can see in their games how many points they're averaging, how many points they're average allowing. We've got the margin in here, so if you're covering spreads, if you're looking at totals, you can see, what's going on. Like here, for example, Boston, they started off, they played a 212 game, then it's been 230, 233, 259. They've been scoring a ton of points, so that's something to take in consideration when you are betting totals. And again, down here, you don't have to really worry about these stats. These kind of run in the background, and I use them for some articles. But that's a lot more in depth. But if you're just looking for your basic betting information, you can look here and say, okay, Boston, they've won 4 straight games. Sometimes if you see a game missing, it just didn't update, just let me know. I can plug it in there for you. And that is not a holy God. 155 to 104. They had a 50-point win. I missed that one. But anyways, no matter what you're playing, daily fantasy, sports betting, player props, we've got our main tab here. We've got our DVP. We got our bet tab. We got our props. We have our game logs where you can look at specific players' game logs for each specific stat. We have our scoreboard if you want to get a quick look like what we think we're going to do on the betting slate. We have our leaderboard if you want to filter some stuff out, and we have the key. And as always, there's probably 1 or 2 more tabs that I will add in there once we get going on the price pick. So that is what we got for this season so far. It is November 4th. I'm going to get this video uploaded and posted. So good luck, guys.